dive into this microservice characteristic diagram here and take a look at some of the things that are important to know. First up, in terms of a characteristic, would be the independence, right? So I could develop something in the C# language. I could develop something in the Python language. It really doesn't matter what language I choose. And that's one of the advantages of microservices in a large organization. Let's say a game company or a software development company that does media, or any kind of a large Fortune 500 company. You may have a huge selection of developers from C# to Python to Node to Erlang to Haskell, Swift. You don't have to actually pick those languages. You can pick to build a microservice instead. And this is really the independence of microservice. Likewise, you can also not worry about connecting things together. You know that there's a single purpose that we'll get to in a second. So if we talk about single purposes here, this is the other characteristic of microservices that is so powerful, is that I can build out a machine learning prediction. That machine learning prediction does one thing. It takes, let's say, a cat or dog image, and it classifies correctly that cat or dog. Likewise, with data engineering, you can have this process of doing ETL pipelines where you're able to go through here and build a whole infrastructure around data engineering, and all it does is this one thing. So that really the link between independent and single purpose is one of the most critical aspects of microservices, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Okay, let's take a look at some of the benefits of microservices. What are the benefits? Well, fast development is probably one of the easiest ones. And part of that is because you can take a function, which I would call function as a service, and you can actually really put that function into a piece of code and deploy it into production. And this is something that we'll cover when we get into the AWS Lambda ecosystem or Fast API, where we build out a machine learning prediction. All those things work together in a microservice framework to allow you to build things quickly, build prototypes. Also, resilience. Resilience is another thing that is important that we talk about later in the lessons. And this allows you to have an isolated environment where if something goes wrong in the other part of your system, it's not tied into this microservice that you built. Your microservice does one thing. Another thing to consider is this concept of containers. We'll get into this in later lessons here, but with containers, you're able to actually take something and put the runtime as well as the code in the same location. And this runtime plus code is a critical aspect of deploying software correctly. Finally, this polyglot environment, you can do C#, you can do Ruby, you can do Python, you can do Swift, you can do any language you want when you build out a microservice. This is one of the key benefits. You don't have to hire people that know just this one language.